I was born into a simple life as a beekeeper, surrounded by nature's buzz and hum. The routine comforted me. Each day spent tending to hives, caring for my bees, and harvesting the golden honey they produced. February 29, 2024, started like any other day. The air was crisp, the sun barely peeking over the horizon as I prepared for another morning of work. Breakfast was my usual toast with honey from my own hives. I savored its sweetness, not knowing that by day's end, my life would change forever. Pulling on my protective beekeeper suit, I stepped outside to check on my hives. At first glance, everything appeared normal. The bees were buzzing about, industrious as ever. But as I approached one hive, something felt off. The sound coming from it wasn't the usual harmonious hum. It was erratic, filled with an urgency I had never heard before. I moved closer and spotted the problem: a large hornet, aggressive and menacing, trying to force its way into the hive. Hornets are death to bees. They can decimate an entire colony if left unchecked. Without thinking, I acted, reaching out to grab it and end the threat. But the hornet was quicker. It turned and stung me directly on the hand. The pain was immediate, searing like a hot needle had been plunged into my skin. I recoiled, clutching my hand as a burning sensation spread through it. Still, I didn't think much of it at the time. I'd been stung before. I assumed this would be no different. I removed my beekeeper suit and began walking back to the house, determined to ice the sting and get on with my day. But as I walked, something felt wrong. My hand began to swell alarmingly, and my breathing grew labored. By the time I reached the porch, I was gasping for air, my chest tightening as if an invisible hand was gripping my throat. Panic set in. I stumbled through the door, collapsing onto the floor. The world around me grew darker, my vision narrowing until there was nothing but blackness. The next moment, I wasn't on the floor anymore. I was floating. I could see my body lying there, motionless, and my wife Beatrice rushing into the room. She screamed my name, shaking me, pleading with me to wake up. I wanted to tell her I was okay, that I was here, but my words couldn't reach her. I was no longer in my body. I watched as Beatrice called 911, her hands trembling as she explained to the operator what had happened. Then, with tears streaming down her face, she began performing CPR. It was surreal to watch her fight so hard to bring me back. I felt a deep ache, not physical but emotional. I wanted to comfort her, to tell her I was still here, but I couldn't. As I hovered above the scene, something strange began to happen. The room started to fade, as though someone was dimming the lights. Beatrice and my body became distant, receding into the background until they were gone entirely. Suddenly I was moving, not walking or flying, but being pulled through a tunnel of darkness. First, it was terrifying. The tunnel was long and narrow, and I felt completely alone. But as I continued forward, I saw a light in the distance. It was bright and warm, radiating an indescribable peace. The closer I got to the light, the more the fear melted away. I felt weightless, unburdened by pain or worry. When I emerged from the tunnel, I found myself in a place that defies human language. The colors were unlike anything I had ever seen, vivid, radiant, and alive. The grass beneath me seemed to sing as the wind passed through it. Surrounding me was a field of flowers, each petal glowing with a brilliance I can't describe. In the distance, a city sparkled like gold, its buildings gleaming as though they were made of light itself. And then I saw them. Figures began to appear in the distance, walking toward me with smiles of pure joy. My grandfather was there, just as I remembered him from my childhood. My old dog, Rusty, wagged his tail and barked, running up to greet me. Even Mrs. Pembroke, my third-grade teacher, was there, her face full of warmth and love. They all seemed so happy to see me, and I felt a deep sense of belonging. But before I could reach them, I heard a voice. It was the most beautiful sound I'd ever heard, like a symphony of harmonies resonating in perfect unity. The voice said, "Ezekiel, welcome. But it's not your time yet." I wanted to argue. This place was perfect, free of pain, fear, or sadness. I never wanted to leave. But the voice was firm yet gentle, carrying an authority I couldn't challenge. "You have more to do," it said. As the words sank in, the vibrant scene began to fade. The glowing flowers and singing grass blurred, replaced by the tunnel of darkness. This time I was moving in reverse, pulled away from the light and back toward the earthly realm. It felt like being torn from paradise. The peace I had felt was replaced by a crushing weight, and suddenly I was back in my body. Pain slammed into me like a freight train. My chest ached and my throat burned with every breath. I opened my eyes to see Beatrice's tear-streaked face hovering above me. Paramedics surrounded us, one of them shouting, "He's back!" Relief washed over everyone in the room, but I could still see the fear in Beatrice's eyes. Later, I learned that I had been clinically dead for almost 5 minutes. My heart had stopped and I wasn't breathing. The paramedics told me that Beatrice's quick actions had saved my life. If she hadn't performed CPR when she did, I wouldn't have made it. In the days that followed, I couldn't stop thinking about what I had seen. At first, I kept it to myself, unsure of how to explain it. But the memory of the light, the voice, and the beautiful place stayed with me, more vivid than anything else. A week after the incident, I finally told Beatrice. We were sitting on the porch watching the sunset when I said, "Honey, there's something I need to tell you about what happened when I died." She listened quietly as I recounted everything. The tunnel, the light, the field of flowers, and the voice that told me it wasn't my time. When I finished, she took my hand and said, "Zeke, I believe you. And I'm so glad you came back to me." Since then, I've shared my story with others, hoping it will inspire them to seek God and live with purpose. What I saw during those 5 minutes changed everything for me. I now live each day with gratitude, knowing that life is precious and fleeting. The light I experienced was real, and it gave me a glimpse of something far greater than this world. I'll never forget it, and I'll spend the rest of my life sharing it with others, so they too can find their way to the peace and love that awaits us all.